Good morning. Today is Wednesday, February 12th, 2025. AI, artificial intelligence. One type of this is ChatGPT. It's here. It already impacts every area of your life and mine, and it will take on larger and deeper roles week by week. Like any new technology, AI is morally neutral. It depends how it's used. It can be used in a way that is helpful, that is good, and it can be used in a way that is harmful or that is bad. I want to focus on the impact of AI on two specific areas that relate to me personally, because there's so much to talk about. So I just want to relate to these two specific areas. One is my work as a rabbi, and the other is my work as a professor at McGill. And what I want to say will relate to both of these areas. In both of these areas, AI, artificial intelligence, can be very helpful, especially as a research tool. So I could use ChatGPT, and I could ask, give me 10 sources that connect Tu B'Shvat with this week's Torah portion of Yisro. Okay? So if I wanted to develop a Dvar Torah on that subject, I would have 10 sources. I could look them up and I could form what I wanted to say. Or in a class like my Talmudic law class, I could say, list for me 5 articles on the comparison of the law of contracts between Talmudic law and Quebec law. So in other words, it's a very advanced search tool. I still have to do the work to go through those sources and put them together. But my speech or the paper that's being written, it could be helpful for that kind of really advanced, far advanced search tool. Now, of course, if a person does this, they need to be very careful, because experts say that currently the results from AI are equivalent to about a B+ student. So there are lots of mistakes, lots of inaccuracies. So you can't just take it at face value. You have to be somewhat judicious in going through it. Here's an interesting example of using AI as a rabbi that I found very interesting. This was in an article in the New York Times a few weeks ago. There's a Rabbi Oren Hayon, and he, one day, recently, took a picture of his bookshelf, the Sfarim, the Jewish books on his bookshelf, and he asked his AI assistant, that is the artificial intelligence, he asked, which of these books have I not quoted in recent sermons? So that's an interesting usage. If I could find books on my shelf that I've overlooked or I haven't been quoting as often as I used to, that could be interesting if I wanted to make sure that I was quoting from those works. Okay, that's interesting. The problem starts, for my work, when we ask AI to write for us. Now, I have read many sermons generated by AI, and you could do it. You could put anything into an AI request. You could tell the computer, write a 15-minute sermon on the Parsha of Yisro that supports Israel and uses sources connected to Yeshiva University. I'm just making an example. And it will do that. It will spit something out. Or a student in my class might, Here at ADATH, someone might ask ChatGPT, write a short email message to our members at the end of the year, thanking all of the volunteers for their help during the past year. Okay? Or a student in my class might say, write an 8,000-word paper contrasting, let's say, the laws of divorce between Talmudic law and Sharia law. So once we get into this area, there are three main problems. The first problem is the results that I have seen, and I have looked at this pretty carefully, and I've also listened to colleagues who have worked on this more than I have. The results will be very generic. They will lack creativity. They will lack any of the feeling a speaker will have for their audience. The pieces that I have read are superficial, unimaginative, rely on slogans or cliches, and use lots of words that really don't actually mean anything. So that's the problem. That's the first problem. The results are not so good. Of course, it could be that AI will advance in the future and may become better at this. But currently, the results are subpar. Rabbi Hayon, again, who is very involved in AI in his synagogue, but he writes, our job, he says that he would never use AI to write his sermons. Our job is not just to put pretty sentences together. It's to hopefully write something that's lyrical and moving and articulate, but also responds to the uniquely human hungers and pains and losses that we're aware of because we are in human communities with other people. It can't be automated. And from everything I've seen, I agree with that completely. That's point number one. Problem number one. Problem number two is that both Torah learning and academic research require toil, working to understand each idea and to be able to then explain it clearly to others. Research skills are necessary. It means being able to go through a book or a passage and to find what is important or relevant. And all of that is lost when it is handed to you by AI. And there's a concern, there's a very serious concern, that students and rabbis could lose the willingness or eventually the ability to study on their own and to instead pass off work done by artificial intelligence. And that is a serious worry. And that the risks are not only subpar work, but there is, in many cases where AI generates something written, there is bias, misinformation, inaccuracies. Certainly it would be inappropriate to use AI to ask it a question of Jewish law because of these inaccuracies. A person could never rely on such a system that wasn't checked by a human. And in general, Torah learning requires effort. You can't just sit back and have it all handed to you. And academic research also requires effort. You have to go through it. You have to try to understand it. You have to work on it. And all of that, all research skills, all efforts of Torah learning are lost when we make use of AI. So that's the second problem. The third problem, I think, is the most serious. I want to refer to the Book of Esther. Purim is coming up soon, and you remember the narrative of the Book of Esther near the beginning. Mordechai Yoshev Bashar HaMelech. Mordechai was sitting near the gates of the palace of Achashverosh, and he overheard Bigsan Viseresh. They were plotting to kill the king. Vayivada hadavar leMordechai, and Mordechai became aware of this plot to assassinate Achashverosh. Vayaged leEsther HaMalka, he told Esther. Remember, Esther is his niece. She's the queen. He told her. Vatomer Esther lamelech b'shem Mordechai, and Esther told Achashverosh in the name of Mordechai, and it was found out that there was, in fact, a plot to assassinate him, and the two would-be assassins were killed, executed. Vayikaseh b'sefer divrei hayamim livnei hamelech, and this was written into the annals, the chronicles, the history, the diary of the king. Now, this becomes a critical detail later on, that Esther did not just tell Achashverosh that there was a plot against him, but told Achashverosh in the name of Mordechai, because later in the story, we learn, hold on a second, there's some kind of noise going on above me. Okay. Later we learn, Balayla hahu nadadash nasa melech, and it was on that night that the king Achashverosh could not fall asleep, and he asked to bring his chronicles, his diary before him, and to have it read before him. Vayimatze kasuv asher higid Mordechai al bigsan Viseresh. They read to him from the chronicles this event from before, where Mordechai had told about this plot, assassination plot. Vayomer HaMelech, and Achashverosh said, "Ma na'aseh yakarag dula leMordechai al zeh." What did we do to reward Mordechai for this? And they said they didn't do anything for him, and so Achashverosh arranges the reward. And you remember from the story that turns around the whole thing and leads to the saving of the Jewish people. Had Esther not said it in the name of Mordechai, this would not have happened. So our rabbis say, literally in this case, Amar Rabbi Chanina, this is a passage in the Talmud. Amar Rabbi Chanina says, Kol ha'omer davar b'shem omro, whoever says something and quotes the name of the person who said it originally, maybe ge'ula la'olam, they bring redemption to the world. Now that's literally true in this case, because Esther quoted not just what Mordechai said, but that Mordechai said it, quoted who said it. That is what puts in motion what saves the Jewish people from the decree of Haman. Now, this concept, this rule of saying something b'shem omro is later expanded in Jewish law to encompass using anyone's work without permission is prohibited. Or if you don't have permission to use it, or if you don't attribute it. If you just say something, we call that plagiarism. If I just say something, and actually it's a quote, let's say from Rabbi Sachs, I try very hard not to do this, but if I would do that, and not say, and Rabbi Sachs said, that would be plagiarism. It is a form of stealing. If I don't attribute it, and if I don't have permission to quote it, it is a form of stealing, and that is a halacha that is decided and is applicable. And this, to present something as if I wrote it when I did not write it, even when I reviewed it and maybe I edited it a little bit, but I didn't write it. and to present it as my own is a violation of this principle of saying something b'shem omro, in the name of the one who said it. And this later in Jewish law gets quantified into copyright law, the obligation to observe copyright, intellectual property rights, that there is a prohibition of stealing when I steal someone's ideas without permission, without attribution. And this is a very serious and important category of Jewish law that applies to us. And all of these things are in danger when it comes to using artificial intelligence for writing something. Now, some rabbis I have heard that they'll have ChatGPT write a sermon for them, and they will say it. And then they will say to the congregation, I didn't write that, but look how artificial intelligence comes up with it, and they'll make whatever point they want. Okay, fine. If they want to, if that's what they want to do, that's fine. But to use it to write and to pass it off as your own without attributing it, it is stealing, and it is wrong. And so that's the third reason, the most serious reason, why using ChatGPT or artificial intelligence is not the right thing. Certainly in my work, and certainly for my course that depends on being able to have research skills, all of that would be lost if students were to use artificial intelligence. There are and will be helpful and good uses for AI. But there are and will be, in certain areas, great dangers. And so we must be very careful with it as it evolves. And it is evolving very, very quickly. For the record, I wrote this myself, and I do not use AI for any writing or teaching that I do. Just so we're clear. My friends, I wish you a great day, and I look forward to seeing you soon in person.